Hi and hello and happy holidays, football fans. Welcome to the Dave Dameshek football program. Welcome to NFL Week 16. Happy holidays, like I say. The festivities are ready to
your
begin.
House, I've never seen it looking so good, Dave.
Yeah, if you're listening, I'm sorry for you because your eyes, if you're watching on YouTube, I don't have to tell you. You're
beautiful
seeing,
menorah.
I mean, it couldn't be more festive in
It
here.
really is.
Right.
And Mrs. Dameshek was just in here passing around some
Hot
holiday
toddies.
treats and some
Delicious.
hot toddies. That was fantastic.
We're all
Thank you.
loaded.
Let's not make everybody jealous. Let's say hello to everybody here in not Studio 66, in the Dameshek living room, as we get ready for NFL Week 16. First of all, we'll say hello to the voice of the Los Angeles Chargers, one half of the finest radio show in all the land, Petros and Money. Track that down on iHeartRadio. You watch them on NFL Now, Thursdays and Fridays all through the season. It's Matt Money Smith. What's happening, fella?
I'm just excited by the holiday fair.
Yeah?
I get excited. The missus did a bang-up job here in the living room.
Hey, Money, do you guys have a family tradition for the holidays? What do you do? What happens in the Money household?
You know what? We really don't.
Oh.
Normally we go out, get a tree, decorate it. We just moved a week ago, so our
Did you?
house is
Congratulations.
our life is kind of turned upside down. So we have no tree right now. We don't know.
You have
what the
no
heck is going on.
tree.
No, we just moved. Exactly, actually, just a week and a day ago. So we went shopping for a tree, and all the lots were closed. I was like, wait a minute, it's 9 o'clock at night. Why is a tree lot closed? I'm a guy who works late.
What about your, obviously in your past career, you were a music producer. I always forget what your
Promoter.
Promoter, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Producer's
promoter.
different.
You were involved in the music biz.
Exactly.
Is the point. What? Give me real quick. 1, 2, 3 Christmas songs. What are the best?
Oh, oh, boy. Probably the Christmas song Nat King Cole would be my
How's that one
favorite.
go?
Chestnuts roasting on an open
That's
fire.
the Christmas
It's
song?
called the
Jack
that should have a better
nipping
name.
at your nose.
Should
Yeah.
be
Or on
called
the other
Chestnuts.
hand, it's arrogant.
Right.
It's the Christmas song.
Yes.
All
The
other
Christmas
Back off.
song.
songs, right?
Exactly
yeah.
right. That's probably top of the pops for me. I've always liked the Little Drummer Boy. I've always been to some.
You do?
Yeah, I do. Even though Bing's a terrible person, just the video of he and Bowie doing it together always kind of tickled my fancy. You know, leaning on the piano,
Yeah.
Bowie's falsetto comes in. I've always appreciated that. And for whatever reason, I think, just to kind of round it out, full spectrum, I love the sound effect of the whip in Sleigh Ride. For some reason, as a child, that always stood out to me.
Is it specific just to that song?
Yeah,
or do you
just to that
like the
song
whip
when you
sound?
hear, it's lovely weather for a sleigh ride together with you.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, we're on a sleigh and we're
they
moving.
injected that into the
Yeah.
song. Yeah, I like all the music.
Yeah,
it's great.
I unironically enjoy pretty much every single Christmas song out there, even the Paul McCartney
Oh,
one.
that's the worst one ever.
I know people
Worst
hate it. I'm fine with
song
that.
It's not good.
ever.
I like the Don Ho one.
Love Don Ho.
I like the Peggy Lee jazz. That's the
Peggy
best.
Lee's one of the best.
Rocking
One of the- yeah.
around the Christmas
One of the all-time
tree.
greats.
That really
Yeah.
might be my number one. Handsome Hank. Lo, let's say hello to him
Hi.
as well.
Happy
Do
holidays.
they celebrate Christmas in?
Yeah, we
Is
do.
that right?
We do have Christmas. It's pretty exciting. They have Christmas there.
Traditions?
And we just call it Christmas.
Is it
the-
Santa
the-
fat though? Because I know in some parts of the world, the Santa is not heavy set.
Oh no. Well, we call him Father Christmas.
You do.
Santa. I don't know where Santa. We call him Father Christmas, and it's the same idea. It's still Saint Nick.
He's
but
bringing you good stuff.
He's still bringing you good.
Why
stuff
is he
if you've
Kris
been good.
Kringle?
Yes.
Where did the
I
Kris
don't-
Kringle
that's an
business
American
come
deal.
from?
That's a U.S.
So
deal.
that's also
I've never heard of Kris Kringle
manufactured thing.
before.
What's the
I mean,
worst
they're all the
Christmas-
same guy. He's just got a bunch of different nicknames.
Right, he's in a red
Ooh.
suit and he's got toys. Let's
Before
go.
I forget,
Yeah,
I
let's
want to
go. He
say
flies.
I want to not just self-promote, but promote my youngins. Game day morning this Sunday. Be on the lookout. If you remember Football Baby from a few years back, the wizard of picking football games.
All grown up now.
Well, not all the way. No.
Smoking now, right?
He's only 5.
Does he have to do
He's
a pack
fine,
of
okay.
Marlboros per day?
Oh, smoking now, yeah.
Exactly. He's driving with one hand on the wheel and
Right.
the other hand free for the
That
chicks.
celebrity.
with a
That
nice
celebrity.
Marlboro
That
Red.
celebrity just
Hey,
went to
Matt
his
Money
head.
Smith can't be calling football games forever. Somebody's got to
Exactly
take
right.
over for him eventually.
Get some gravel in that voice of
Yeah.
yours, young man.
But yes, he and his little sister, 5 and 3 years old, are they're helping. They're really doing a solid thing in the spirit of the season. They're helping fans of teams who aren't going to the playoffs. They're giving them a new playoff team to root for, so that they
very
can
cool.
stay engaged.
That's very nice.
Okay.
So watch for
That's a
that.
gift.
Yeah, watch for that on game day morning. Handsome, worst Christmas special.
Worst Christmas special. I don't know.
Do
what
you
that
have
means.
those? Did you get
Yeah,
like
we
Rudolph
do.
the Red-Nosed Reindeer and all those?
Not like that. More like TV shows would do
Variety
a special
show, right.
version of their show. I always kind of enjoyed them.
You know what's
There was
weird?
there was
Yours probably have an English. For you, Santa has an English accent.
I mean, not just for me, for everyone.
Ho, ho, ho.
Santa. I mean,
I'm very good behind the table. Very good.
yeah.
Your behavior was rubbish.
You've
Here's
been a
some
very
coal.
naughty boy. Yeah, I think Santa might have an issue with you actually. This year.
Exactly
Although,
right.
well, I mean, partly because
Why?
you're impersonating him with that, with that, and that.
How dare you? I'm nice and I'm relatively thin.
Boy, oh boy.
What? Is
I
it-
am caught in the crossfire here. Let me tell you.
I'll tell the correct answer, by the way, is you mentioned one's health,
Yeah.
in broad strokes. The worst one is a year without Santa. Heat Miser obscures a lot of, I'm Mr. Heat Miser. It's a snappy tune. And so people think the overall special is okay, but it is not. It's
Right.
basically like it's like a lot of shots of Santa in bed. He can't go out. Something like, it's the story of terminally ill Santa Claus. It's a very weird message for the kids.
But a hell of a
That's just-
song.
But the worst of them all, you know what? I'll
Okay,
tell it
all
to you
right.
now.
I thought that
We're
was the
just
worst
gonna.
one.
I thought we're about to pack up because I've.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know this one?
No.
The worst of them all.
It better not be what I think it is.
What?
It better not be the whole Rudolph and his old man making him put
Come,
that out.
just money. Just indulge him.
I'm not. You know what?
Tell
I'm
us,
not
Dave.
even gonna
Indulge
jump
him.
into
Dave,
it.
tell us.
And then after that, let's talk about some great.
I'll do
candy.
that. Yeah. I mean, just all I'll tell you is the first scene of Rudolph the Red-Nosed
Yes.
Reindeer.
Yeah.
It's in the cave.
Right.
Moments, seconds after the birth
After
of
the birth
Rudolph.
of
Yeah, the
Rudolph.
dirt and,
And his
nose
mama and his father Donner, who's famous,
Yeah.
Donner, one of the famous reindeer.
Although
They're-
not the most famous.
Donner,
Like Donna and then like Joseph, father of Jesus, since we're
Same
talking
thing.
about both kind of like
same
a
level,
little obscured.
same basic level.
Well, technically, Joseph's not the father.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, and
I'm just
I
saying,
guess
like,
Yeah, the
if we're
earthly.
being
the
technical about it.
Well, the
He's just kind of
earthly-
a dude that was there.
He just happened
just
to be
kinda like,
around.
hey,
Donner,
He was
though,
making time with Mary.
here's to me.
Yeah.
Ma-
Sorry, Dave. Sorry.
No,
Sorry.
no, please,
Sorry to disrupt.
please no. That's right. Please, I like the monologue. No, in a cave, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is born.
Yep.
His parents see him. They don't know that he's going to go on to have a red nose. They're just happy to have an infant
Or not.
child, clearly their own. And they say, "What will we call him?" And Donner just declares to his old lady, "Oh, it's Rudolph." And she's like, "That's a fine name for a baby." Then his nose turns on. Rudolph turns on. And Donner's like, "Oh, well, we gotta hide that. We can't let Santa find out about this nose
Sure.
because Santa will never let him fly in the sleigh." That's your first thought at the
Right.
sight of your own child. The miracle of birth is delivered into your cave, and your first thought is, "Oh, the old man who runs the shop ain't gonna be happy about it." And then, sure enough, Santa comes in, ho ho ho, and he makes his way into the cave. What?
I was like today, and I was like, "Hey, here we go. We're doing the whole
That's
thing."
right,
we're
we're doing it
doing
because
the whole
it
thing.
The whole
needs
thing.
to be called out
Let's just-
for as many years
Not
as this.
just one little slice. We're doing the
No
whole
way!
thing.
We're doing the whole-
Then
we're
Santa
doing the whole
comes
bit.
in. He's like, "Let me see this future member of my team."
Let's get the camera just.
and
on
then
Dave.
all of a sudden,
Can I get my single, please? Not mine, Dave.
and all of a sudden, Rudolph's nose goes bright again.
Yep.
And Santa, again, this isn't even his child to disparage. He's like, "Well, you better fix that up, Donner, or else he's not going to be on my team." What a creep this old fat man is that he's in here ripping the little baby reindeer, can't let his mama enjoy the gift that was just delivered from the reindeer gods. And then, without any warning, Santa just launches into a song about himself. Like this is this family's special moment. "I am old Kris Kringle, I'm the king of jingling." What are you singing about? We just had a baby 90 seconds ago, Santa. Then 45 minutes
Then-
later, 45 minutes
going.
later,
45 minutes later.
Santa, who, by the way, it's his shop, so let's not blame some middle manager in the toy making place where Dennis is making the toys, and the misfit toys get shipped off to this island like they're a bunch of lepers. This is Santa, the
Sure.
buck stops with him, and he's allowing He's prejudiced against these poor misshapen toys, and they all get shipped off to some island where Santa doesn't have to think about them any longer. And then after all these misdeeds by Santa, and right at the end, it's cloudy outside. Hey, Rudolph, let's let bygones be bygones. Won't you fly my sleigh tonight? Rudolph should have said, hey, screw. You should have thought of that earlier before you started ripping on me. Santa's a jerk in that show.
And that's all we've got time
for.
It's been a
the
thin
annual
slice of
telling
heaven
of why Santa is a jerk in Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
It's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah. But that's one of my
like the
favorite
songs of Burl
Dameshek
Ives
bits
and-
of all time. This
Yes,
is
it is. It is
officially,
good.
it's 2000.
I never thought of it
it's
till
2019,
you
which
brought it
means
up.
that's the
I will credit you
ninth
for that.
time
I
I've
don't
heard
like
that story.
any of it. You know what?
You don't like any of it?
I'm a man of justice.
You don't like any of it. You
Well,
don't like
I think
Hermie.
Rudolph is
You
weird.
don't like saving the Island of Misfit Toys. You don't like. I understand the Island of Misfit Toys. You know, if Santa's the guy that's delivering the goods, and I wake up and my doll's got an arm growing
Right.
out of its chest, I'm gonna be pretty pissed.
Right.
I
I'm
know.
sending
I'd rather
that, but I
doll
would,
end up on an
I'd be
island
straight
than
up
in a gift,
to
in a box and under my tree.
800 Santa. Hey, we got a problem here,
Yeah.
Santa. You're going to need to come back and pick this thing up.
It doesn't seem in the spirit of things. And again, whose watch is it on? It's on Santa's watch that
Sure.
these misfit toys are happening. And he says, I don't want to have to deal with it. I don't want to
Let 'em
have
live
to
with
talk
one
about
another.
it. Send them away. Send them off so I needn't
It's a little bit
deal
like
with it.
it's a little bit like the hats that the Super Bowl, they produce for the Super Bowl,
Right.
that then don't get used.
Where do they go?
The Rams Super Bowl winning hat, they go to the kind of the island of
Misfit toys, exactly right.
Yeah, same thing.
I don't care for any of it. It bothers me. I'm a man of justice, and it makes me uncomfortable to say it.
What
But
is that? Year 10?
Santa's a jerk in this show.
How many years this bit been going?
Oh,
20?
at least 20.
30? How old were you when you first
Did you
recognized
add bits to it? Like once you realized that this was going well, were you like, okay, I think I can do more here? Like
I
Chris
can bring
Kringle-
in the Misfit
I can bring in
toys.
the Misfit toys.
Been
Santa
around for
runs
a
the
while.
shop,
I would
his name's
say,
on it.
Say a good 30 years that
Yeah.
I've been
Where
calling
did,
out
where did you
Santa's
first
poor
try
babe.
it? Round the table at
Mo Dameshek,
Yeah.
my sisters, yeah.
Yeah.
Talking
and
with
they
them.
and it went well, presumably. I mean, like it's not like your mom's ever going to say, "No, Dave, I don't think that bit's going to work."
I mean, listen,
It's a good bit.
I
It is
speak
a good
truth
bit.
to power. It
Right.
makes people uneasy, including the man in the mirror, but it doesn't mean it doesn't
Including
need to
Santa.
still doesn't need to be said. That's right. That's
Right.
exactly right. All right, listen. Let's now talk about pro football, shall we?
Okay.
And
Please.
specifically, let's get into this week's edition of Fresh Takes, presented once again by our pals over at Zaxby's, home of the famous chicken fingers, wings, and salads.
Any Christmas fare at Zaxby's?
Sure.
Anything I can get
What?
there that's
Christmas chicken fingers.
Okay.
They're delicious.
Okay.
Chock
right.
full of
Christmas.
holiday cheer.
Christmas.
Right.
Very
Thank you.
good.
Thank you.
Yes.
Here,
Fingers.
speaking of old men, Drew Brees is in the news because he just broke
Never heard of
Peyton
him.
Manning's
Right.
touchdown record, and now it has launched a rolling conversation about where Drew Brees ranks on the all-time list. Let's modify all-time list into Super Bowl era, as I constantly say. Who cares what happened in 1942 when pro football was a minor league sport? The modern era of pro football begins with the Super Bowls, maybe a little bit prior to that with the AFL and NFL rivalry in the 60s, but either way, let's address it over the last 50-plus-ish years. In the Super Bowl era, I start with you, Matt Money Smith. Drew Brees.
Right.
We're not going to do this in a vacuum either.
No.
Where do you rank him all time?
He's there.
Who's ahead of him in your book? That's the way to figure it out.
Who's ahead of him? Tom Brady,
1,
Joe Montana,
2,
John Elway.
3. That's the one that a lot of people are saying, well, Drew Brees is obviously superior. I was on social media earlier this
I
week.
saw that. Yeah.
And a lot of people, and I suspect younger people who didn't actually see
They got the
John
back
Elway
end
play,
of John Elway.
Right.
right, are declaring, well,
Right.
obviously he's better. Look at Elway's numbers. They're
Well,
junk.
that's ridiculous.
I think, Dan Marino's an interesting one. And I guess this is kind of where time and place comes into context, right? An impressionable youngster when I'm watching Marino and I'm tempted to put Marino ahead of him.
I do too.
I think I
1984.
am.
I'm more
Yeah,
than tempted. I'm doing it.
I think I am. Yeah, I think I'm putting Marino
84,
ahead of him.
Marino 84, Aaron Rodgers 2011. Peyton had 1 year in there. I'm trying to think of what year
The guy's
it was
got
specifically.
5,000-yard seasons. Like,
I
I
get it.
appreciate
Definitely-
Aaron Rodgers 2011. Like, I'm not putting Aaron Rodgers ahead of him. I'm just not.
Yeah, that's the one where like.
Hey, way to go. You got a
3
great
years ago-
arm. You're not as good a quarterback as
Yeah.
Drew Brees.
2-3 years ago, I think Aaron Rodgers, we would have sat here and probably
Yeah.
said, yeah, Aaron Rodgers is ahead of him. Now, I would say Brees
He's
has
a
continued.
better quarterback than Aaron
Drew
Rodgers.
Brees is a better quarterback. Exactly.
Here's it. Versus Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre, it fits neatly
I think
into
he's
the
a better
same
quarterback than Brett Favre.
He's a,
Well, I mean, I think both those guys that have spent, or Brett Favre, obviously, I don't know if you heard, but he played for the Vikings and Jets at the tail end there. But the vast majorities of their combined careers are spent in Lambeau and road
Sure.
games in Chicago and Minnesota before. Well, they've
Totally
been under
fair.
the dome the whole time.
Not to mention with Sean Payton, arguably the best play caller of his
Right.
era.
And look through, just look through the numbers. And I'm not condemning Drew Brees. Obviously, he went to a team that plays all its games in a dome, and they play the Falcons in a dome, and they play in Tampa Bay once a year where it's at least warm. So, I don't know how much you can quote unquote blame Drew Brees for this, but numbers of quarterbacks go up when you're in a dome versus
They do.
outdoors,
Sure,
let
but at
alone
the
when
same
it's
time,
close.
those guys are practicing outdoors. They're practicing in the cold. They're more used to the elements. When he shows up
I'm
in
just
those
saying
elements,
that
it's
their
like,
numbers-
okay, this is different because I don't have to deal with
I'm
it
not
every
even
day.
denigrating Brees for not performing as
You're
well
just saying
outdoors.
his
I'm saying if
numbers
you,
are
if you
lifted
put any
by
of those
that.
guys in a dome, what would their
We-
numbers
we
be?
assume,
Over the
yeah.
course of
Yeah.
a career, you can inflate their numbers significantly.
That's fair. And I think, he didn't always have the best players around him.
No.
Like the talent around
that's
him
the difference.
compared
And he
to-
made them all
compared to-
better.
And he made some of those guys better.
Yeah. Look at Jimmy
and-
Graham.
yeah,
Jimmy Graham without Drew
Graham,
Brees
yeah,
versus Jimmy Graham with
exactly.
Brees.
I think
And
that-
he didn't have defenses as well for
Right.
a lot of his career. That Saints
Exactly
defense,
right.
now where it is better than it's probably ever been during the Brees Peyton era.
What do you think, Handsome? The name Marino comes up. I'll let you as the Dan Marino lover. You came to love the Miami Dolphins as a young Englishman, watching 13, the turquoise and orange, or aqua, as you call
Aqua,
it.
yeah.
Aqua, as you call it.
Aqua and orange, yeah.
Go ahead, Marino v. Brees. How say you?
Well, they're pretty similar for that reason. Neither of them had the talent around them. I have made the claim that I think Don Shula, was at the time a very bad general manager.
I think this
of
is a
the
great
team
point you
who-
make
who-
that I've never heard anyone else call this out, and if you look into it, you're kind of right about
the
this.
drafts that followed Marino all the way to the end of Shula's career, which was another decade, were they missed every single time on the players. I mean, he drafted no one. He didn't have good weapons around him. Shula was past his prime at that point, and they were kept. Shula essentially had his career extended, I would say, by about 6 or 7 years because he
of
had
Marino.
Marino at quarterback, and I guess therefore there's an equivalence on skill position players and defenses between both teams. But Brees had Sean Payton, who's probably one of the 3 best play callers of the last 2 decades, and
Right.
Marino had Shula, who was clinging on, and a bunch of other bums.
I think that to me the most interesting one is Peyton.
I was
yeah,
going to
yeah.
get
That
to
to
him.
me
That's
is,
the one.
is it.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
that's where you can have a fun 50-50. You can make a case for either. I will not, besmirch you whichever name you decide to go with, but I would take Brees over Peyton.
I agree with you about that. First of all, just to round out the Marino point, I think it's right, and we've talked about this a number of times, but why should I not mention it again after I just went through the whole Santa story again?
Sure, yeah. Go for it.
The thing, Dan Marino, the story about him is he never won a Lombardi, but what did he have? He had crummy defenses largely, and who were his skill guys? He never had a running back. But the Marx brothers, Mark Clayton and Mark Duper, and then later O.J. McDuffie, are all superior to anyone John Elway had in the 80s. Until Shannon Sharp arrives to play that hybrid tight end spot for him, his pass catchers were Vance Johnson, Steve Watson, and Mark Jackson. They are all worse than the Marx brothers were.
Right.
And Elway, it's the thing that the distinction between Elway and Marino, people who weren't lucid during that era, say, well, Elway was better because he got those Lombardis. Of course, those are owed to Terrell Davis more than they are to Elway. The most significant thing Elway did was drag those those mediocre Broncos teams.
But they were
to
mediocre.
3 Super
They were
Bowls.
mediocre Broncos offenses. I agree with that. But the defense that
They were
had
pretty
there,
good. They had Steve
They had
Atwater.
Steve Atwater, Carl Mecklenburg. They had a bunch of players that were, that were perhaps underrated in that time, but were perfectly good. Marino's defense. I mean, he had no one. On those
I'm just making the
defensive
point
teams.
that if you let Marino off the hook for that, I think that Elway deserves
Yeah, and I'm with you. I mean,
same consideration.
I would
in it.
elevate Elway in this conversation.
And those Browns
to be
teams
ahead
of the curse and all that kind of stuff that hangs over Kosar and now Baker Mayfield and everybody in between, those Browns teams should have beaten the Broncos, and Elway is the reason that they couldn't beat them. But okay, money's point, Peyton Manning, I think if you really take a step back, they are comparable guys. Their numbers line up.
Dome guys.
Right. The difference is Peyton, from the day he walked into the building, had Marshall Faulk, and then he gets Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne and Edge James.
Dallas Clark, who was a great tight end for a long time.
And the Saints, no doubt that they have attempted to provide Drew Brees with
Dwight Freeney, Robert Mathis. Like, you look at the defenses that he had as well.
Bob Sanders.
Sanders.
First of all, it's fraudulent to say that they never had any good defenses in Indy.
Right.
Obviously, they did. But Bill Polian conceded a few years ago, we had to construct this team for Peyton. Maybe we made a mistake in doing that and not trying to flesh out a more fulsome roster on the three units. But yeah, I mean, Peyton required those pieces to thrive. Drew Brees, until Michael Thomas arrives, and you mentioned Jimmy Graham, outside of that,
Well, Marcus Colston was pretty darn good, but that's because of Brees.
But Marcus Colston, I mean, that's his number one
that's
receiver.
his number one guy.
Marcus Colston.
Also,
what would that guy have been?
It's not that
without him?
it's not that the Saints weren't trying to acquire players for him. It's just that most of them didn't work out. They spent a lot of picks on
Reggie Bush.
Think
about Reggie
Bush
Bush.
was
Never realized.
never really took off there, or at least not to the extent that everyone expected him to. But it wasn't that they weren't trying to do that. They also had a defense that they were trying to build throughout that time that they largely whiffed on as well.
Yeah, I just think that Brees, the dome stuff, and I've perpetuated that as much as anybody. That the splits, the home road splits, and you're right, money. Obviously, if you're not practicing in that regularly, it is going to be a curveball to get used to. But the big distinction that favors Brees is who has he played with on his side of the ball over the course of his career. Finally, has Kamara and Michael Thomas, but until the last few years, Drew Brees was really carrying that offense. The primary knock on him, besides the home road splits, and the elevated numbers from playing the vast majority of his games in domes, is 3 straight losing seasons and 5 overall. There's not very much evidence in the 21st century that you can be a high-end Hall of Fame level quarterback and have protracted losing stretches.
Well, he's definitely a Hall of
Phil
Fame.
Rivers, Eli Manning, and Drew Brees
but
are
one
the
of
only
those
3 you can point
was
to.
no Sean Payton. One of those was the Aaron Kromer. You get suspended for a year, just complete crap show of a season. That was one of the 7 and 9. So if you take that out, I'm saying if you have Payton, if you don't have that distraction, chances are that's not a 7 and 9 season. And then you have a winning. You don't have even 2 in a row. So
the other thing about Drew Brees that, obviously not on the field, but what he did for New Orleans after Katrina, and the team was a laughing stock for most of its history up until that point. I mean, he completely, with Sean Payton, reversed the fortunes of the New Orleans Saints.
Right.
They were a joke, and they're now perennially one of the better teams in the NFC.
I'll tell you 2 things that straddling the 40 years or so, the era that we're kind of talking about. I do think that it's really hard to summon a case at this point. The numbers are so egregiously different. It would be hard for me to make a case for Terry Bradshaw. I mean, it's completely, the numbers are so out of whack. I mean, he had a year where he didn't complete 50% of his passes. But Roger Staubach, if you dropped him into 2019, if you dropped him into 1998 or otherwise, he would have been a high-end quarterback. And I think he deserves some consideration from that early stretch of that would translate into more modern day football, Staubach more than anybody else. Although I do think Terry Bradshaw, if you put him on the right team with that whip.
Steve Young.
I think
to me,
Steve Young is another
there you
one
go.
that
Steve
I was
Young's
just
the
about
one
to
that's
say.
always the wild card for me.
Well, Steve
It's-
Mariucci and David Carr will both tell you, guys who know about quarterback, and will tell you that Steve Young was better than Joe Montana.
Yeah, don't get David Carr in more trouble with
I know. Joe. Well,
Yeah.
he thinks Joe Montana isn't a
Is
top
not a
10
10
Super Bowl
top 10
era
quarterback.
quarterback, which is a little loco, but okay. So yeah, that and then you consider the modern guys who are getting left off. Patrick Mahomes, too soon to be evaluating him, but I also think, I mean,
got a chance.
7 years from now, isn't he
Don't know.
tracking to?
I don't know, because we had this conversation 7 years ago, and you and it was hard to argue with you at the time, put Aaron Rodgers in there, but like now we're saying that Aaron Rodgers probably isn't in there.
He peaked
So-
a couple years ago, I think, in this conversation of greatest of
Maybe.
all time, and now he's sliding.
And
a
then
little
the
bit, I
other
think.
one is, and I'm not going to say Ben Roethlisberger, but
But in both cases,
you
you
just
mentioned Bradshaw and Roethlisberger.
You
Because
wanted to make a
just
point
say
about
that-
Staubach, but
I
you had to
know-
mention
mention
Bradshaw,
Bradshaw.
I know
and
the
now you're going to
argument.
make a point about
Someone else-
whether
somebody
people
else.
like
and
it
you
or not,
mentioned
whether
Roethlisberger.
people like or hate the fact that I invoke those names, people always will ask me after the fact, why didn't you mention
No.
well, that's because
guys who wear
More
black and
people.
gold?
That's because they
expect
know
you.
you're a homo.
No,
That's-
he-
Like to do. Why did you mention Bradshaw? You didn't have to. It was a point about
Because
Staubach.
he
made the
All
point
you had
because
to do was
about
say
Roger
you could
Staubach
drop
without ever
Staubach into
mentioning
any
him.
era and he'd have been fine.
Because they were
because
rivals.
because about 3 years ago, I wrote a piece ranking by the decade what the perception
I remember, it was a
likely
great idea.
in as of Super Bowl
Yeah.
10, as of Super Bowl 20 and beyond. As of Super Bowl 20, you would be hard pressed to make a case for anyone other than Bradshaw as the best quarterback of the Super Bowl era. 4 rings. Now the numbers are completely thrown out of whack and everything else. But see, now you've dragged me.
What
into
did you
it.
want to say about
Who's the-
someone
who's the
else
other- who
while
is
Russell
using
Wilson?
the pretext of
Russell
Roethlisberger?
Wilson.
Why do we need to know about Ben Roethlisberger
Where does Russell
to have
Wilson
a
rank?
conversation?
Hasn't Russell Wilson-
Why was Roethlisberger mentioned leading into Russell
Because
Wilson?
I think
Because he
he's-
didn't want to mention him. He doesn't want to talk about Ben
I didn't say I
Roethlisberger.
don't want to. I'm not
He
going
doesn't
to
belong
go
in the
down that.
conversation.
Russell Wilson is not.
Ben doesn't belong in the conversation.
Ben should not be
you're
included.
doing
doesn't.
that. Now you're
He
doing
doesn't.
that to make me cross.
No, I'm not.
He doesn't
He
belong in
doesn't
this
belong
conversation.
in the
Roethlisberger-
conversation.
But Drew Brees does.
Yes.
But Ben Roethlisberger, it's not even on the same plane. It's ridiculous.
It's not
to
like
say.
I
he
don't
maybe
think
is in the
anyone
next
outside
10
of
or
a-
the next 10.
Yeah, I don't
Only
think
because
anyone.
you know why you don't.
Only
you know why?
Steeler fans would
No,
inject
you know what
him
happens.
into this conversation.
You know what happens?
What?
Just as the 1 week that the Ravens were on their bye this year, that all of a sudden, because Lamar Jackson was out of sight, out of mind for a handful of days. If you go back and look, if you dig up, if you can tap into the computer and look at what the buzz was in that fortnight that the Ravens weren't playing. It's crazy how much everybody just forgot about Lamar Jackson in the MVP conversation. It quickly turned into, well, so who's the MVP? Is it Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson? Like, what happened to Lamar Jackson? He's not playing this
Oh, you think
weekend.
because he's out this year?
I'm saying yes, based on that in a more protracted way.
Nah.
Ben Roethlisberger's out this year,
Not
so
for
now
me.
it's not.
I just don't
Now it's
feel like that.
laughable.
I don't
if he
feel
had
like
4,000 yards and this team was tracking to the
No.
playoffs, we would
Dave, no.
Doesn't do
absolutely
it
be
for me.
talking
No,
about
he's
that.
not, it's not. I mean,
No.
he's,
I think you guys
he's
are-
like the 20 to 30 list for me
I think
I'm with
of
you.
the Super Bowl era.
you did. That is.
He's on the.
You know
he's-
what?
he-
It's
he's
funny.
maybe like somewhere between 17 and 30. And
You're the
we could-
bizarro Booger McFarland. Booger
What?
cannot
No,
watch
I'm
a
not.
game without declaring like, this young man is in the conversation
You
for
brought
the
him
best
up, and
for
he
the
didn't
best
belong
at the
in the
position.
conversation.
In our
He's not a
league,
top
in
10
our league,
quarterback.
this man is in the conversation for best at the position. Just because you're watching a guy play this week, Booger, does not
That's-
enter him into the
That's
conversation.
not what we're doing.
Ben Roethlisberger
He does
would
not
100% be in your top 20 if you sat down and started
Not in the
drawing.
top.
I
We're
just
talk-
said
right now we're
17
talking
through
top
30.
10. This
I just said
conversation
somewhere between 17
the
and
Drew
30.
Brees
That's where he is.
conversation is top 10. This is a top 10 conversation, not a top 20 conversation.
We just wasted 10 minutes talking about Ben Roethlisberger.
Because you forced it. You
No,
made
you
this.
didn't. You
This is on
mentioned
you
him.
did.
You
This is
mentioned
on the
his
two of you
name as you
skunks.
then went to Russell Wilson.
You
Let's
scoundrels
talk about Russell
demanded
Wilson.
this conversation,
Let's talk
and now
about
we're
Russell
into
Wilson
it.
because he's definitely ahead of Ben Roethlisberger.
See, why do you have to be that way?
Well,
okay,
he
Russell
is.
Wilson it is. Russell Wilson, where is he 3 more years? Because you know what? I had an epiphany. I picked the Cowboys, so did you, Handsome Hank, to go to the Super Bowl. I'm not jumping
Still
off
could
that.
happen.
I'm not jumping off that bandwagon
Right.
just yet. Let's see what happens on Sunday. But in the meantime,
Well, why would you?
I kind of feel like
There's no reason to jump off it yet.
well, no, but I mean, I feel like, as we talked about the other day, Handsome, the Seahawks and Niners, where we started this decade, or by 2011, the two juggernauts of the NFC were the Hawks and Niners, and so it's fitting that we round out this decade in the same way. Those are the two best teams, I think, in the NFC right now. And I think if you had to make a pick, if Jadeveon Clowney is right, and it's a big question mark of how effective he's going to be, if he's right, I think they go to the Super Bowl. If I go, and if they get to a Super Bowl, and Russell Wilson gets to 3 at this
And
point,
wins 2, maybe.
I mean, don't you think? I mean, isn't Russell Wilson?
He's tracking. He's definitely tracking for top 10
to hit that list.
If you had to win a game, regardless, I mean, the standard that I always lay out is the fate of the planet hangs in the balance for one game. And I can't tell you if it's going to be indoors or outdoors. I can't tell you what kind of defense you're facing. I can't tell you the quality of the guys on your side. You only get to pick the quarterback. Wouldn't everybody take Russell Wilson over Drew Brees at this point?
Just for what he'd do on the sideline.
Yes.
Excellent motivation, man! All those kind of things. That's what I want.
I mean, doesn't Russell Wilson finish his career in the top 6 to 8 quarterbacks that we've ever seen, or in the Super Bowl era?
I would say somewhere depending on what he winds up winning, somewhere in
if
that.
he wins
sort
multiple
of,
Super
in
Bowls,
that 10 through 6.
Yeah. If
range,
he's on this trajectory where statistically he is a top
where he
5
looks like he's
more in
gonna
your
land.
gut. I mean, more in your gut. Whatever the deeds
Yes,
are when
gut,
he hangs
no
it up,
question.
whatever's on the banner. I mean,
no question.
You watch Russell Wilson behind a cruddy offensive line for almost his entire career now. He hasn't
Also,
had
lack
Marshawn
of
Lynch.
talent at the skill positions.
Yeah. Doug Baldwin's his best pass catcher ever.
I mean, so look, we're having a positive conversation now, but you brought up Ben Roethlisberger, where it's just like
no reason.
It's just like no,
No
and
reason.
None.
Well, except for the fact that
No. No.
Except for what fact?
No.
You wanted to ask about
2 Super
Russell
Bowl
Wilson. Don't care.
victories,
No,
3
doesn't matter.
appearances.
So what? Eli Manning, 2 Super
Bob
Bowl
Greasy.
wins.
That's
Bob
not
Greasy.
so
Eli
what?
Manning,
Bob
2
Greasy.
Super Bowl wins. He's not in the
Bob
conversation.
Greasy.
Bob Greasy should
Bob
have his
Greasy.
gold jacket revoked.
Hey.
Yeah. And then neither him and Ben would have a gold jacket.
Shame on you. Now we've gone off.
That
the
was
rails.
just mean.
Thus ends Fresh Takes presented by Zaxby's.
Let's get to it.
All right, let's get to it. But I think Steve Young, by the way, Steve Young is another guy who is better than Drew Brees, right?
If I were forced to pick a quarterback to quarterback my team, yes, I would take Steve
So
Young.
just to finish it.
Montana,
Brady, Montana,
Elway.
Elway,
Marino,
Young, and probably Russell Wilson.
maybe Russell, right?
Maybe eventually Russell
Yes,
Wilson.
if he keeps this going.
For now, I will put Brees ahead of Russell Wilson.
Anyone else there, Spaghetti? You haven't jumped in here yet.
What about Phil Simms?
Yeah, assuming you guys like it.
Hostetler took over under adverse circumstances, and all he did was beat them Buffalo Bills.
I just
2
assume-
words if he had the coaching. Dave Brown.
I just assume you guys like Eli was 1, and you're trying to figure out 2.
Yeah.
Like the 6. No, I'm
Exactly.
kidding. The problem with
Exactly.
this though, and I've seen a lot of people talk about it on Twitter, and now Dave was involved, is like half the group is like, well, winning matters the most. The other half is like stats matter the most, and a little bit of, I guess, on-field talent. And there's
Eyeballs.
and there's no real middle
able to
It's all
balance
three.
all those
It's
things.
all 3. You got to win. You got to be able to see they got the talent, and you got to have the stats.
Got to look good doing it.
All right, let's go. Let's do it.
Nobody mentioned Troy Aikman. He's the other guy.
I like Troy.
Love Troy, but
Not in the
He's
he
conversation.
was
ahead of
not asked to do
Roethlisberger.
what these guys were asked to do.
All right,
He's
let's
ahead of
get
Ben
to it.
Roethlisberger, though.
It's time for the Week 16. We only have 2 more weeks of regular
Right.
season football, fellas.
We're still
time
going to
for
throw challenge flags in the postseason.
I guess so. Here we go. Red challenge.
Flag
picks. All right. Here we go. Bills fresh off a victory in Heinz Field. Josh Allen.
One of us
Place
picked
to
that right.
start.
That defense, nifty. The Buffalo Bills.
So one of us
Duck-eyed.
picked that right.
You know what? I give you credit, Money. And in fact, if I would have had my stuff together, I would have honored you by pulling that clip where you said that all the underdog story. We've talked about it all season long. I'm not surprised. I haven't said that Duck Hodges is ever
You
going to
did pull,
win a game
pull it for this
Pittsburgh.
pod. Yeah, you put it out there on the social media.
You're right. No, you nailed that one. But now they go into Foxborough. The bummer to me is that the Bills, even in victory here, don't put themselves ahead of them in the AFC East. It's still highly likely that the Patriots not only win the division but get one of those byes, and that puts them on track to at least reach the title
annoying,
game.
isn't it?
Right.
A little bit.
A little bit.
But I do think that this would be another dent in the dynastic run of the Patriots, and the Bills would elevate their sense of self a little bit, although they've had a number of great performances of late that I think probably validate them already, but vanquishing the divisional bully would elevate it even further. So, Handsome Hank, it's your division after all. You like them Dolphins. Bills, Patriots. Bills are America's team as of a week ago. Choose.
I'm going to choose the Patriots.
Nah, I
want to
can't
throw it. I'd
I
love
really
to.
want to pick the
No
Bills.
spaghetti,
and
no
I can
money.
see it happening, but I just and yeah, I just no,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
I
pick
want
the
to. I want to pick
Patriots.
the Bills terribly.
I
but,
feel like
You know what? I will.
okay,
I'll take them.
Good for you.
I'll take them. I'll take that
Explain
defense.
why.
Defense, all three levels. Tom Brady struggled against a pretty darn talented Bengals defense for a good chunk of that game before it got away from him. And it got away from him because of 4 turnovers by the Bengals, not because the defense was letting up too much. They were just on the field for too long. Tre'Davious White, Edmonds is unreal. The defensive line.
He really is, huh?
He is fantastic. And I think they can get – it's been the formula all season. And I think it's kind of one of those I've seen enough of it. I have seen this enough to believe that John Brown is enough of a playmaker on the outside to open things up for Devin Singletary to get things done. I wish they had one more playmaker. If that team had one more playmaker like just a Keenan Allen and Antonio Brown, someone who didn't need a lot of time to get you that open receiver to get rid of the ball so you don't have to hang on too long, I'd feel a lot better. And I think that's obviously, and that's what's great about this Bills team is it lines up in a draft that is flush with receivers.
Right.
You've got 7 or 8 guys that'll get first-round grades for the Bills to go out and maybe pluck 2 of them to help this team out for future years. But I think they have enough. I do. I think it'll be another close game, and I've seen enough from Josh Allen where he makes good decisions late in the game to get wins. That's what he did against Pittsburgh.
Boy, when you smother teams the way that defense does, I'm telling you, it's an effect. I always point to you have to have a bye to get to a Super Bowl. The last decade pretty much proves that. But that kind of a team that's going to, when they get in, they're going to have a devil-may-care kind of spirit about them. They start shutting down the home team, it will turn by halftime disadvantageous for the home team if they're doing that to them. I think in this case, obviously the defense is the headline with these Bills, but I also feel like now Joe Mixon had his way against this Patriots defense. And we were having conversations 8 games through about the Patriots not just being the best defense this year, but one of the best of the century and all that. I don't feel like that's the case any longer. I think that if you're waiting for this defense to save the day for New England, I think you're going to be disappointed.
It's not great.
Yeah.
It's very good.
Yeah.
I can see Devin Singletary and company having a day on them up there. I do think, though, I'm going to stick with the Patriots.
Yeah.
I really want to change my pick now.
Really?
Yeah, I kind of do.
No, I think you want to. I think you
can't
can
pick
make enough of a
against them.
case that I'll throw it that we don't have to all 4 be on the same page. But
I'm the other thing that the Bills' defensive tackles in particular have been able to consistently get pressure. Jordan Phillips has been a guy that has really stepped up for the team, and I just knowing that what the interior of that Patriots offensive line looks like. When I was there a couple weeks ago for the Chiefs game, they were not excited about the interior of their offensive line.
Right. Well, and Chris Jones is exceptional.
Exactly. And you're going to see the same thing with the guys that they have in there. I could see between that and then the guys that the Bills have in the secondary, Brady having not very long to get rid of the ball, and then his receivers, who he's out of tune with already, leaving him in a bad situation where Tre'Davious White is there to get a couple plays. I'm going to reverse my pick.
All right.
There
we go.
I love it.
There we
That's
go.
exciting.
Love
That's
it.
very fun.
That's
and
good stuff.
by the way, just to finish up where we were a week ago, Money, I stand by Josh Allen. Accuse me of recency bias, if you will. That's fine.
You're number one guy from the
I'd rather
the
have
draft.
Josh Allen than Baker Mayfield. I think Lamar Jackson is different, and Lamar Jackson requires that you scheme around him. Obviously, if you just dropped him in on any team and they said, "Yeah, you have to throw from the pocket," I don't think that would work out so well.
I don't necessarily disagree with you there. I just feel like
Circumstance.
the young quarterbacks that have beaten the Patriots so far this season, Mahomes, Lamar, and Deshaun Watson, are all like a problem, where in a way that I'm just not sure I think Josh Allen can be thrown out by Belichick, who's going to have whatever cooked up for him with that defense, which I agree with you is not as good as it was a couple months ago, but will still be very capable of disrupting him.
I'll throw one out there for you again, because I feel like when you call me a homer, I have to say something. I think the Jets are going to win this week. I think the Jets are going to beat Pittsburgh.
Bonus
this week.
pick.
Now
Put it in there, Raby.
Here we
I'm
go.
throwing
Saturday night
a
game.
flag on that.
You think the Jets will lose?
Yes.
I don't know. All right. Anyhow, Rams at Niners, a classic NFC West tilt here. A lot of good games between these. I think so.
Yeah.
You know,
It always looks good as well. Here's
It
what I
is a
wish they would
handsome-
do: wear the red and wear the blue. There's no reason
Why
for them not to.
It's a good point.
I like when that.
SC,
Yeah,
UCLA
no,
style.
I wouldn't mind the Rams going in the all gold.
In
you
the
know,
nice blue. Oh
Yeah.
no, not the gold. No, no,
Gold's not too bad.
Oh,
Looks
it
nice
is.
against a team in red. Don't you remember the Chiefs game in the
It's very
Coliseum?
Christmassy.
Look, yeah, exactly. All right, here we go. Matt Money Smith, Rams, Niners. Choose.
Niners.
Nobody?
No.
All right, we can make quick work of that one. I guess we like the Niners.
Yeah.
I excused the Niners in advance of that game. You could see that if there were, given the stretch that led up to the Falcons game last week, and then what's upcoming with these Rams, and then
the Seahawks.
finishing up in
I think
in
they have to
Seattle.
be careful of not looking ahead again this week as well.
Yeah, I think because the Rams should have won that game, the fact that Zerline missed, what was it, a 44-yard or something like that, which he almost never does, I would assume it makes it easy not to look past it. But, yeah, I mean, look, what do they want to do? They want to run the ball down your throats. What did the Cowboys just do? 2 100-yard backs, broken tackles all over the place, excuses again for Jared Goff. His poor little thumb hit a helmet, and all that crap from the LA media. I'm over it. So wear it.
Listen, the thing with
Wow.
Jared Goff is for
It's
all
like,
the
I
money.
mean, really, I'm getting excuses about
Jared
Jared
Goff
Goff
sitting in his-
bravely
in his hot
played
tub in
through.
Malibu.
In light of the circumstances, Jared Goff fought off. Whatever. Shut
of
up.
all the guys you don't
He's
pay.
been terrible.
Right. Well, listen, at his best, forget how lousy he's been for long stretches this year. Just in general, is he at his high end? Is he anything better than a
15th
mid-level
best
QB?
quarterback? No,
Right. Like, I mean,
it's a terrible
if Jared
decision to
Goff
give him
has
that
everything
deal.
break his way, is he? The fact that he was at some point last year
There were
an
stretches
MVP
last
candidate.
year. There were stretches last year where he was playing like a top 3 or 4 quarterback.
I know,
but
but
I think we all
in
accepted
scheme.
that was in scheme with
Right.
someone
Peak
in
Todd
his
Gurley
ear, with
before he
Todd
fell
Gurley
apart.
at his best, with the defense at their best.
Yep.
You can afford to let loose when that's happening.
Next up, we go with the Saints at the Titans. This one feels big. I think the Titans don't have to have this one unless they.
Yeah, they do.
They don't not to get a wild card.
Oh,
they
gotcha.
don't.
I was thinking division. They got to win this. They
Division's
need the
kind
Bucks to
of-
do them
the
a
division
favor
is
and then knock
kind
off.
of-
The Texans
Is out of there. Even with 2 wins, I think they
They'll
still
know
have to have
by-
things
they'll-
go their way. The Titans.
Yeah.
by the time the Titans hit the field on Sunday, they'll know what they need to do. If the Texans beat the Bucks on Saturday, the division is over with, and then it
Right.
becomes a question: will they play Deshaun and company in Week 17, which has major wild card implications? Because whether you know it or not, I think some Steelers fans and Titans fans out there are looking at the Week 16. We have to beat the Saints, and the Steelers need to lose to the Jets. Or if the Steelers beat the Jets and we lose to the Saints, it's a wrap. Untrue. The Steelers can beat the Jets and lose to the Ravens as long as the Titans beat the Texans in Week 17.
They would then make
they
it.
get the wild
Right.
card. So that's still up in the air. All that being said, Eddie Spaghetti, Saints,
Go, Edward.
Titans. Oh, really? A musical matchup here. Choose.
I hope the Titans win. They're a team that's easy to root for. You always talk about story of the year, team of the year. I just like them. I'm afraid that they may have played their best ball or peak a little too early. Tannehill is a guy that deserves a job after this year.
All right, pick it.
Make your
pick the
pick,
game.
fella.
That's not
First,
how. This
will you
isn't
pick?
how
I'm
it
not
works.
pick it.
I'm not.
You just say the team
Pick
name.
it.
I'm not picking against the Drew Brees who in the
So
Saints.
you're picking the Saints. No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not throwing that. Sorry.
There you go. I'm throwing.
You're taking
much
Titans.
harder.
You're
Harmony.
picking the Titans.
I'm picking the Titans.
Are you?
I am.
Oh.
Tell us
It was
why,
because
man.
it was an odd start. It was just such a wonky start to that game
Last week.
last week.
Right.
And then they kind of settled down, and it's like, oh, okay, so this is the Titans team I was waiting for. And unfortunately, you
it's
waited
too late.
2.5 quarters
Yeah.
before you woke up and imposed your will on a Texans team. I don't know what happened. You had a turnover, a reception at the goal line that was popped out right before you broke the plane, and that would have been a touchdown, and instead was a turnover. So I think too much.
I think the other way. I think the Texans had a terrible call against them that could have cost them the game and therefore the division. And Deshaun Watson had a weird, wonky pick at the goal line.
He did. But so did Tannehill.
Yeah, I'm just saying that. So those two, I think that's a lot.
But all those are good reasons why they should have won the game last week. I'm still not sure I understand how they're going to beat the Saints this week.
I just think they're a very good team. It's speaking to our home road splits for Drew Brees and the Saints outside of the dome in Tennessee. I know it's not Lambeau Field, but it's still cold. There's still elements that they'll have to contend with. And I think this defense, look, Deshaun Watson is able to extend plays and make magic, and Drew Brees has got to be on schedule. And I just like the front, specifically the interior push they get with Casey and Simmons on this team. And I like the ability to sustain 8-9-minute drives, with Derrick Henry and keep that Saints explosive offense with Michael Thomas off the field. Like I said, you saw with A.J. Brown last week, they are just a load to contend with. So,
boy, he's dynamite, A.J. Brown.
He really is.
Those receivers there.
Yeah, I think the Titans
I think they're
win the
all
game.
great. I think like we talked about.
Oh, and by the way, last thing. Their tackles. The fact that their defensive line is decimated, so you're going to be running right at that line that is down Davenport at the end and Rankins in the interior.
Well, Derrick Henry's out there, but he's not 100%.
He did not look 100% last time.
Right, and that's the difference. If Derrick
Time
Henry,
to get Dion Lewis more involved, right?
Yeah,
maybe
you would think.
But I think I also think
I'm not out yet. Maybe it's confirmation bias that I predicted they would win the South, and then they would be a team that could make a potential run, and so perhaps that's creeping in here that I'm trying to keep that thing going because I was so adamant about it. But I just like the team. I like the team.
I think Pittsburgh loses its last two, and I think that the Texans will win, and that will put the Titans into the playoffs because if you're holding out hope that maybe the Texans will stumble against Jameis and company, I think football fans may not like hearing this, but your heroes, what they love is a week off and the promise of if you guys win this game, the division's a wrap, and then you can put your feet up in week 17, I think is enticing. Same thing for Lamar Jackson and company. People who are holding out hope that maybe the Browns will get him again. I think that those guys are going to be fired up from Baltimore to end the season and take a couple of weeks off. So I think I do think the Saints will win this week though, but I think that the Titans win week 17 down in Houston. Next up, the division on the line, the NFC East. We should have had Spaghetti choose this one.
Have them choose
the
it.
Cowboys.
I don't need to choose it.
You're right.
Take
you're
it,
right.
Spaghetti.
It's the Cowboys at the Eagles. 7-7-7. As far as the eye can see, more 7-7 than a holiday party.
Hey now.
Right?
Hey now. Hey now.
C-. Eddie Spaghetti. Choose.
You got to match up with the second and third best quarterbacks in the NFC East here. I'm going to go with the Eagles at home.
Bang! I'm going to throw it righty at you.
All three?
Oh, am I going to throw
Mind you, Dak's
come on,
word's coming out today.
buddy.
Dak's a little banged up.
Yeah.
All right. Injured Dak.
All right.
I just think the Cowboys are just a team that beats other mediocre teams. They don't really beat good teams. And I'm not saying the Eagles are a good team. I know they just struggled with Washington, but if you're Carson Wentz, you know how big this game is for your career, and talking about a guy that has a bunch of weight in his back he has to perform. You have the home crowd. It's a great home field advantage. And the Cowboys are a team I just don't trust. I just don't trust them at all.
That's what I disagree with. It's a great home crowd. Not if they get down 2 scores. Then it becomes bad for the
right. But if they go up 10, 13 points, all of a sudden the Cowboys players are going to feel rattled. Garrett's going to players don't respect Garrett as it is, especially in the cold weather. If Dak is injured or if it's any significant injury, I could see things getting out of hand for the Cowboys, and they're just going to lose all hope, and they're going to.
I disagree with you about that too. There's not a lot of evidence that the players don't respect or don't play for Jason Garrett. Every time. And not this year and not just last year. I mean, for a half decade at least. Every time it's like, well, Jason Garrett, that's it.
He's done.
Good run.
He's cooked.
Good run. The team rises up around him or otherwise and wins games. And I think they're going to win the division by banging away with 21.
Right.
They're gonna ride. Our pal cousin Sal predicts, and because he's been bitten by his Cowboys in the past with this, that they're going to beat the Eagles and then lose to the Skins and lose the division in Week 17. We've seen that before, but
that's not possible.
I think
it is. No, they'd have the sweep on the Eagles, so they wouldn't be able to lose the division.
If they
beat the Eagles and lose to the Skins, they win the division.
Sal's a dummy.
Dummy.
I mentioned that.
Sal, you dummy.
But yeah, I mean, is anybody gonna try to make a case for?
I think Eddie made it.
I
think Carson Wentz is the better quarterback.
Is he?
Is
I
he?
think so.
Carson Wentz is
But
the
I
better
mean, that was
quarterback.
the thing I took issue with is I'm not sure. Like, yes, Carson Wentz is under pressure, but so is Dak. I mean, like but this is a high pressure game. This is for both teams. They know they need to win this to get to the playoffs. I don't think Dak is like, well, I'm not feeling the pressure now. He's got a contract that he still needs to get done. He has his head coach, maybe his career riding on him. I would say that there's all the reason in the world.
It's funny, if Dak does lose this game, then it does lend some to the conspiracy theorists out there who say maybe Tom Brady goes to America's team next year.
Not a bad idea.
Too late. He's already been promised away to the Los Angeles Chargers by Dave Dameshek. Yeah, no, I already put him down there. They can have Old Man Rivers down in Big D in 2020. I doubt that's going to happen. But yeah, listen,
That'd be interesting too.
All right. I don't think it goes that way. And then, of course, we have Cam Newton, who's got to find a new home.
Right.
It's starting to feel like Derek Carr may not be long for the
There's
silver
an interesting
and black.
one. Phillip Rivers in a Raider uniform. Whew. Jeez. How about that one?
in Vegas.
That wouldn't be a Gruden
I don't think
guy,
I can
Well,
see.
that's a total Gruden guy.
But I mean, at this stage.
Rich Gannon, Brad Johnson. I need a guy with a sharp brain to run my offense and all the verbiage and terminology and checks at the line. And
I don't know how happy Philip and the
Or
family
Tom Brady
would be
or-
in Vegas.
Oh, yeah, that's a good
Shoot.
point.
Sin City might not be the place
golly,
that you'd find.
I did not. Well, maybe they establish, a nice Catholic church.
that could be, yeah.
You know,
that-
right there on the
Big
strip.
D
turn
makes
around the
sense,
whole
though.
city's
Exactly.
reputation.
From Sin City to
To
Redemption
Saint
City.
City.
Yes, to Saved City.
Saved City.
Yes,
That's good.
Salvation City.
Yes.
There you go.
All right, let's
work,
bring
man.
it on home here, fellas. An NFC North tilt. Packers, Vikings, Handsome Hank. Choose.
I'm going to take the Vikings.
Oh, I'm surprised. All right, I'm going to drop it there. No one's going to take Aaron Rodgers, not Eddie Spaghetti, not anybody.
I
No.
mean, just there's a lot of looking at the Packers. You're like, yeah, I can see the results. I see that you get wins, but none of it is particularly impressive on either side of the ball, including Aaron Rodgers. And on the other hand, the Vikings
That
keep
defense,
flying
man.
under the radar, and their defense.
Daniil
is,
Hunter, look out. Like that guy, granted, look what I saw, a 7-turnover game. But, man, that guy, his get-off,
Right.
his hands, they're Bosa-esque, where just anytime he's near the quarterback, those hands are all over the place. Created 2 of the forced fumbles he had. That's the difference. Great. The Packers' defense is better. The Vikings' defense, I think their secondary is a little overrated, specifically the corners, but the front's very good. And Kendricks is very good.
Yep.
Like, how about this? This little nugget from that game.
That was by the way, you basically just said it, so now I have to insert my voice into it to validate it.
so.
I just think that performance by the Vikings in a weekend that felt like it had a lot of other games that distracted from what the Vikes did. Man, they handled the Chargers.
Hammered them.
I thought the Chargers with a devil may care attitude would take.
Well,
care
they were
of the
there
Vikes.
for 29 minutes and 45 seconds, and then
right. But
Rivers,
then
you can't take a sack, you can't turn the ball over.
Right. That was
Sack,
terrible.
fumble,
Oh.
touchdown, and
Boy,
instead of being 13-12 going into half, it's 19-10.
Boy, the pick that fell through, and then the turnover, and then the ball bounds the way it does,
brutal.
that ended that game. But yeah, remember, Dalvin Cook wasn't out there
Right.
for the vast majority of it. Dalvin Cook does need to be out there this time. I think that's key, that
Yes.
he's ready to go and not hampered by injury there, because I do love that secondary for Green Bay.
The nugget I mentioned.
Yeah, sorry.
Eric Kendricks leads that team in passes defensed. And the reason why that's so important is, Eckler was not able to get going, because normally if Rivers is standing there and he sees a linebacker matched up on Eckler, he's like, there it is, coming for you, and that's why Eckler's going to have 1,000 receiving yards this year as a running back. Kendricks is with him step for step, and he's been doing that all season long, and it makes things so hard on guys. like Rodgers, like Rivers, that want to go to that pass, to that running back. And that's just such a difference maker to have on a defense and what he's able to do. Because, again, Rhodes and Waynes and Hughes and all the draft equity they've spent on defensive backs, they're good. But I think they're a little bit overrated. Harrison Smith's been fantastic. So I think when you talk about Smith at the safety, and you do have very good, but good corners. But man, Kendricks at linebacker and that defensive line with Linval and Daniil and man, that is a load to deal with.
Yeah, it feels to me like it's sad to say about Aaron Rodgers, but if you can take away Devontae Adams, and they should be able to do that, then
not a lot else going on right now.
Make 12 beat you, and I think the Vikes emerge victorious in this one. And that's it. That's it for us for the Week 16.
Before we go, I got you a gift.
Oh, thank you for
Very
that.
nice of you.
It's a Julian Edelman
Nutcracker.
Nutcracker.
Wearing a Cowboys helmet.
Is he wearing a Cowboys helmet?
Kinda.
That's kind of a prediction.
Here we go. Can I get a single on this one? Where am I going?
There he
Where's
goes. Crack a
where's
nut.
there we go.
Drink some nog.
Hey,
do
Dave,
whatever you're supposed to do
regale
around
me
the
with
holidays.
tales
Go
of
do your
Ben
shopping.
Roethlisberger and how great he is.
I didn't even bring him up.
You did bring him up.
I brought
Exactly
him up
what
only
you
to say
did.
I wasn't going to bring him up. It's the only thing I brought up about him.
Tell me about Roger Staubach, but with the pretext of Terry Bradshaw, please. Could you do that?
Need to see this laser I'm about to throw. All right. Thanks so much, football fans.
Tell me about Mike Tomczak, please, when you're done.
I'll tell you about Bubby Brister.
All right.
Thanks so much, football fans. It's been a thin slice of heaven.